Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 19th July. The news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 12. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, Aadhaar, 9-judge bench to consider whether privacy is a basic right. So this is now a Supreme Court ruling which will come on the Aadhaar issue. There have been many petitions which have been filed before the Supreme Court questioning Aadhaar and asking for right to privacy and claiming that right to privacy is part of the constitution under article 21 of the constitution. So many benches of the Supreme Court have actually interpreted that right to privacy is part of right to life under article 21. But now a final decision on this is required because historically the cases which are there as precedent for the Supreme Court, these are two cases specifically of the Supreme Court in which verdict has been given on right to privacy. One is MP Sharma case of 1954 in which an 8-judge bench had ruled, and another is Kharak Singh case of 1962. In this, a 6-judge bench had ruled, and both these rulings concluded that privacy was not a fundamental or guaranteed right under the Constitution. So now, if this verdict has to be reviewed and the question of right to privacy has to be looked into again, a larger bench is required. Because up till now, smaller Supreme Court benches have ruled that right to privacy is a fundamental right. But then this arithmetic supremacy lies with these two cases. So that is why now the Supreme Court has announced that a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court will be set up to hear on the question whether privacy is a fundamental human right and part of the basic structure of the Constitution or not. So this is the latest development now. So this of course is in context of Aadhaar, that Aadhaar is violating right to privacy. So this is there. Then these are the statements given by the judges here on right to privacy and how it needs to be decided. The constitutionality of the Aadhaar scheme can be decided later. First, whether right to privacy is a fundamental right or not needs to be decided. So that is the step being taken. Then the next news item is Goa seeks extension of Mahadayi Tribunal. So we have already seen about Mahadayi water dispute. The latest news which we had discussed was regarding the 3 states which are involved here. That is Goa, Karnataka and Maharashtra. Maharashtra has a minor stake here. Goa had asked for a tribunal to be established. So it was in 2002 that on Goa's request a tribunal was constituted to adjudicate and decide on this Mahadayi river water dispute. So this tribunal has been established and now this tribunal's term gets over in August. So the Goa ministry as such is asking the central government, the Union Minister for Water Resources, to extend the term of the tribunal by 1 year because it is still not concluded its cross-examination. So process of cross-examining the witnesses of Karnataka government is still going on. So that is why there will be more time required for the tribunal. So extension of the term is due and that is a request being made here. So this is there in the context which we had discussed it. Actually, Karnataka government has asked for out of tribunal settlement of this case. But Goa has been adamant. But another minister of Goa actually said that we are in talks with Karnataka for out of court settlement or out of tribunal settlement. But then later it has been denied that were the views of the minister in his personal capacity, and Goa government is firm on its stand that it will only go by the verdict of the tribunal. So this is the latest standing now. So we'll have to wait for the ruling of the tribunal whether it gets an extension of the term or not. Mahadayi river, you should know Mahadayi river is known in Goa as Mandovi river. And this river originates in Karnataka, then flows into Goa and finally drains into Arabian Sea at Panji. And this Maharashtra, a little part of Maharashtra lies in the basin of Mahadayi river. So this is the details shown here. The actual controversy also started when Karnataka government decided to build these dams. We had already seen this Kalsa Bandura dam. So these dam construction had initiated the dispute that if Karnataka government diverts water of Mahadayi river, then Goa would be adversely affected because it's a lower riparian state. So if river flow here is affected, then water coming to Goa would be reduced as such. So those are the concerns. So here you can see this is the origin. You can see origin of Mahadayi river here. which is flowing into Karnataka, then into Goa. And this is another river which flows into Karnataka. This is Malaprabha river. And you can see the basins are shown here. This is part of the Malaprabha basin and this is the Mahadai basin. So what Karnataka government wants is that deficiency in this Malaprabha basin should be taken care of by Mahadai river water diversion. So it is building this dam. You can see this will be the dam, Bandura dam, which will be constructed and diverting water to this region. So this is what Goa had protested against and called for a tribunal to be established. The next news item is second FIR filed under Social Boycott Act. So this is regarding an act by the state government. It is Maharashtra state government which has enacted this law. This is called Maharashtra Protection of People from Social Boycott, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2016. This has recently been enforced and there have been 2 cases which have been registered as such so far under this. So this act is important because it is related to social and human rights issues. Plus also there are specific questions asked in UPSC in prelims as well about particular development in a particular state as well. So it does not mean that all state related news are irrelevant. There may be some news, specific peculiar news of particular states which you should know about. So this is regarding a social boycott act here. So this social boycott actually is undertaken by these caste tribunals. So based on caste too, there are these tribunals, panchayats, jat panchayats as such, which you know by different names, they are known in various places. So these give their rulings and they are socially enforceable amongst their caste. And those people who do not follow the norms of the caste as such too, they are ostracized. Social boycott is undertaken against them and some examples as such are also given here. So that is why this act has been implemented by Maharashtra government. It has been enacted after even the presidential assent has been provided to it. So it was reserved for the president too, and you can see in July 2017 it came into force after President Pranab Mukherjee gave his assent to it. So in this case you can see the cases which have been brought forth here, an example to just have a look at it. So this is regarding a 70-year-old member of Vaidu community, a nomadic tribe, and he says that his tribe's caste panchayat had ostracized him since 2014, and that was because he spoke out against the baneful social practices of the tribunal. So he alleges that he has been beaten up by the members of the tribunal. Also, he has been slapped fine of 50,000 rupees. He has been threatened that his son and daughters would remain unmarried unless he paid up the fine. So this is there. Also, he has said that he has been denied permission to enter the community's temple as such too. And even in social functions, gatherings, he is excluded. Then there's another case of this complainant from Madelwar Parit community. So here also he says that he has been ostracized for intercaste marriages which were there. So the tribunal does not allow intercaste marriages, and because of that, even another case is of an auto rickshaw driver who committed suicide because of the humiliation by this caste tribunal on his intercaste marriage. So such cases are there. Another case is of a lady who had been confined because she allegedly failed the virginity test mandated by her caste tribunal. So these are the cases, some of the cases here, and now this act is in place to ensure that social boycott and ostracization does not take place. It is now a crime. Then the next news item is South Asians prone to genetic diseases, CCMB study. So researchers from Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology of CSIR and also MIT, Harvard and Cambridge University researchers have come together and they have collaborated on this study which has been undertaken on South Asian population. So more than 2,800 individuals from 275 distinct South Asian populations from various social and linguistic groups across various nations including India, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. They have been taken, samples have been taken from them, and these 6 lakh genome-wide markers have been used to analyze their samples. So this genetic samples analysis which has been done, this has shown that a third, means 1/3 of South Asian populations have a strong defective genes that is passed on through generations. So the reason for this is being stated that this risk of genetic recessive diseases is high in the South Asian population because marriages among close relatives takes place. This is called consanguineous marriages. So this is shown. So the recessive gene, how it is carried, we'll look at it. So genetic disease transmission, how it takes place is shown here. There are two cases. One is when this gene is dominant, and another case is when the gene is recessive. Dominant genes means if that gene is present, then the person is affected. And recessive means if that gene is present but the other chromosomes. So these are actually the chromosomes shown. So in humans there are 23 pairs of chromosomes. Amongst these, one pair is called the sex chromosome, through which inheritance takes place. So the offspring which is born, its chromosomes are decided based on these. These are the inheritance which is taking place. So here this is the 23rd pair of chromosome, you can say the sex chromosome of father and mother. So in this, the combinations possible as such are, these are the 4 combinations possible shown. So in such a case where the mutated gene is dominant, then in that case, the father, if he has carrying this mutated gene, then he is affected as well. And here you can see this is the mutated gene which is recessive. So here you can see the father is carrying the mutated gene in only one of the this pair of chromosomes. So other one is good. So in that case, the father would not be affected. He is a healthy man, but he is the carrier of this mutated gene. So it will pass on to his offspring. He himself is not affected. Right? And here in this case, since it is dominant, means it will be affected. It will be affecting him only and him also. And if in this combination, you can see if this is the pair which is inherited, then in these two cases, the offspring will also be affected. But if this one is shared, means the offspring born they will take one chromosome from father and one from mother. So if this one is taken, then the offspring will not be affected. So this is in case of dominant gene. But then what we are speaking of presently in this case, in this study which we have seen, is recessive genes. So if there are recessive genes, then father is a carrier here. And if this same mutated gene is there in the mother as well, the mother is also healthy but she's a carrier. Then in these cases, you can see here the 4 possible offsprings in these two cases. Actually in this one case, the inheritance is done by this one chromosome and the other chromosome here. So means both inherited are the defective ones. So in that case, this one offspring will be affected. Means he'll carry that condition because of that mutated gene. And these 2 offsprings in these 2 cases will be only carriers but healthy, because it's a recessive gene. So here this has the defect, but the other one is healthy. So that takes care of it. It's not dominating, it is recessive that way. And there's only 1 in 4 chances that when this and this pair, this is inherited by the offspring, then the healthy offspring without it being a carrier is also 1. So this is in the case of recessive genes. So the study actually is saying that when this marriage takes place within the community, then the genetic mutations which are there in both parents, father and mother. Then in those cases, the offspring being affected because of this mutation, the chances increase in case of recessive genes. So this is shown here, and genetic mutation does take place as such. So there is minor genetic mutation which is going on in communities, but only when the communities marry within themselves, then such cases also arise. So this is a study. Then the next item is DGCA braces for ICAO safety audit. So the Directorate General of Civil Aviation of India will have a safety audit done by United Nations body ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization. This is due in November 2017. Actually, when an audit was done in 2012, it was a huge embarrassment for the government, the aviation regulator as such, because it showed many safety concerns in the Indian aviation system. So now steps are being taken to rectify these, and the DGCA is taking steps now. It is hiring flight operation inspectors. It is also aligning its rules with ICAO norms. It is certifying flight examiners, etc. So these steps are being taken now, is what is in use. So DGCA has also hired flight operation inspectors, offering them market linked salary, because that is the case why flight operation inspectors are not there. If they are getting adequate salary, then they would be hired as well. So that is what is stated. ICAO, you should know about it. It conducts audits in various areas like the laws which are there in place on civil aviation, the organizational setup for civil aviation in a country, the licensing norms, the operation, even airworthiness of flights as such is checked, accident investigation, how well it is done, air navigation system, and even the aerodromes are audited. So this is the news. So here you can see ICAO details are given. It will come for a team will come in August, and then in September there will be an evaluation done of the preparedness of DGCA and how it deals with safety concerns. So this is the fact here that DGCA needs 400 airworthiness safety officers, but it has less than 250 presently. So steps, as we said, are being taken now. And these are the concerns which are there with respect to civil aviation regulation in the country. So this routine safety inspections are not carried out. As we saw, the personnel are less for safety audits too. Improper documentation of air operations and engineering checks are done. Non-computerized flight duty records are there. So these should be computerized as a point. Even people drive inside our airport without proper driving permits. Cabin crew training records are not properly maintained, and all such failures in air traffic control rooms are there. So concerns are there. And this is regarding ICAO, a specialized agency of United Nations created in 1944 to promote safety and orderly development of international civil aviation throughout the world. So it sets standards and regulations for aviation safety, security and regulation. So this is there. And this is regarding DGCA, Directorate General of Civil Aviation. So it has been established for regulation of air transport services to, from and within India, and for enforcement of civil aviation regulations, air safety and airworthiness standards. So these regulations are in the form of various acts like Aircraft Act of 1934, various rules and regulations also. And these are the various directorates under the Directorate General of Civil Aviation. Then the next news item is Australia for peaceful end to standoff. So the Australian foreign minister was on a visit to India, and she stated that in discussions the issue of Doklam standoff was also discussed, and Australia has called for all claimants to peacefully resolve this standoff between India and China, which is being seen in Bhutanese territory. So this is the statement coming from Australian minister too, because they say that any escalation of tensions here could lead to a miscalculation or misjudgment. So this can be disastrous. So this scaling down of tensions is extremely important. Even many countries have raised these concerns in the last few days because of these tensions now crossing even 1 month. It has been going on for past 1 month now. So that is there. So it all started, as we already know, that Chinese People's Liberation Army was constructing a road here on land claimed by Bhutan, and Indian troops stopped them. And China has since been demanding that Indian troops should withdraw and then steps can be taken. And India has been adamant that China stops road construction activity in this land which is actually claimed by Bhutan. So Australia, it also says that for land boundary disputes, it is required that all claimants involved should peacefully resolve the dispute. For maritime disputes which are there with respect to China, it has said that in such maritime disputes, it has claimed that there should be an arbitration under UN clause. So such disputes are going for arbitration under UN Convention on Law of the Sea. We have already seen with respect to Philippines also. This also we had just discussed yesterday regarding South China Sea, the maritime disputes which are there. So these disputes have to be referred to an arbitration under UN clause is what Australia's stand is. But for land disputes, the nations involved should amicably resolve it. So with respect to Philippines, we had seen how it had gone to Permanent Court of Arbitration and got a ruling in its favor, but China has refused to accept that ruling. So this is there. Then with respect to India, Australia, we have conducted recently a bilateral naval exercise called AUSINDEX. So this is there. Also, you should know, we have discussed this earlier, that Australia also wanted to be part of Malabar exercise. It was only once in around 2007 when Australia was part of Malabar exercise, and presently, as we saw, the recently concluded Malabar exercise was amongst 3 nations, US, India and Japan. Australia wanted to be a part of it, but India did not accept it because China has objected to inclusion of Australia earlier. So that is why, but Australian Foreign Minister says that this issue was not raised as such in the present discussions, but Australia is expecting that next year we would participate in the Malabar exercise when US will be hosting this exercise in 2018. So this is there. Then the next news item is reluctant Trump certifies Iran deal. So this is regarding Iran nuclear deal. The actual term for it is JCPOA. Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So this is the deal which has been signed amongst various nations. You can see it is P5+1 who have signed this deal with Iran. So it's not just US-Iran treaty. P5 means 5 permanent nations of UN Security Council. USA, UK, France, China and Russia. So and +1 is Germany. So P5+1 always stands for Germany. So these nations have together signed this deal with Iran, under which there have been provisions brought in to which Iran has to adhere to, so that the sanctions which have been imposed against Iran by this international community and organizations would be removed. So there are these sanctions you can see on which were imposed on oil, finance, banking, etc. So these will be revoked. Relief would be provided to Iran provided it halts its enrichment and neutralizes the stockpile of uranium and enrichment capacity. All these steps are taken. It allows unprecedented, transparent and intrusive monitoring of its nuclear program. So all this has been accepted to by Iran and this JCPOA is in place. So now the news is that under this JCPOA which has been signed, it's not a bilateral agreement. First of all, that has to be clarified, because US President Donald Trump, since he has come to office, he has been speaking against this deal. It has been said that this is a badly formulated deal and this should be scrapped. But though the deal has not been scrapped yet, because the US administration has been ensuring that President Donald Trump does not take such action. They say that there should be an alternative in place before this deal is scrapped, and they're working towards it. The US president has been calling against this JCPOA, saying that Iran is not fully committed to the provisions under this deal. So it is not living up to the expectations. So that is why there is a requirement that this deal should be renegotiated. But then steps need to be taken on that, and then this deal, because this is what is presently there with us. So that is why now the thing is that under US laws, since this deal is there in which US is involved with another country, US Congress means US Parliament has to be notified every 90 days whether Iran is complying with the provisions of the deal or not. So US President has been reluctantly accepting this, that yes, it's agreeing to certify again and again. This is the second time. Means 90 days means 3 months. So after every 3 months, approximately 3 months, this step has to be taken. So again, US President has been convinced by his administrators that he has to certify that Iran is complying with this international nuclear agreement for the US Congress. So this has again been proposed to be done. So this is the news. You can see here that Congress has to be notified every 90 days whether Iran is living up to the provisions of the deal or not. Then the next news item is, this is actually an image which came up in the Hindu. This is regarding attacks on environmentalists. So environmentalists have been attacked throughout the world. So here you can see how environmentalists are attacked, and in many cases fatally. It has resulted in deaths of various environmentalists from across the world, and this trend is increasing presently. So it has said that India saw a threefold increase in such killings, but Latin America remained the deadliest region, with some 60% of world's deaths of environmentalists activists taking place here. So you can see these are the details shown here about how environmentalists are attacked in various regions here in South America, Africa, and even in Asian nations here. So India, the number is 16 such deaths have taken place, as it says. So indigenous people account for 40% of the victims of such attacks, and they are in various sectors. In mining and oil sector, when these environmental activists, they raise their voices against use of land, natural resources. So these are the causes as such. You can see for mining, even in logging related cases, in agribusiness, in poaching, and water and dams related cases, too many deaths have taken place across the globe here. Then the next news item is RIL slumps 2% after $3 billion claim over Panna Mukta Tapti. So this is regarding Panna Mukti Tapti oil and gas fields, Panna Mukta Tapti. So here you can see these are the regions here. These are the oil and gas fields in which a joint consortium has been established. This is having 30% of stake is with Reliance Industries Limited, 30% with Royal Dutch Shell Company, and then the next 40% remaining is with ONGC. So in this oil and gas exploration, Government of India also gets a profit on the petroleum and the royalty which is to be paid. So here government has been claiming payment of this royalty. It had earlier called for a 50% profit has to be paid, but now the current rate which it is demanding is 33% of the payment which has to be done. So this taxation payment which has to be done is being demanded by the central government, and this comes up to $3 billion. And actually for this, Shell had gone for international arbitration, and an international tribunal in London had given its ruling. An interim ruling has been provided and has upheld Government of India's taxation powers and this 33% tax. So again, when government demanded this $3 billion tax, it has been seen that Reliance Industries stocks have gone down. As a 2% slump means 10,000 crore loss which has been seen by Reliance because of this step. And it is said that we are going to again move ahead and appeal to the arbitration tribunal against this step, because it is claimed that it was an interim order. So this is a dispute. So there are many disputes of Reliance with the government. So this is another one of them. You can see Panna, Mukta, Tapti, these fields. Here lies the Mumbai port. Mumbai city as such to Surat in Gujarat is here. So this is where these fields are located. And these are various disputes which we have seen over a period of time. Another dispute between Reliance Industries Limited and government is on KGD6 block, which it also withdrew recently. We saw all that too. So this is there also. Then another case is of compensation demanded because it had developed oil in ONGC's allocated block. So this is a case going on, and even Panna Mukta Tapti arbitration, which we saw, the award in favor of Government of India is also there. So here you can see this is the story regarding the arbitration award too, which came in October 2016 favoring the Government of India. So here these are the details given about Panna Mukta Tapti case also. Then the next news item is mobile operators seek doubling of IUC, interconnection usage charges. So the top operators, mobile phone operators like Bharti Airtel, Idea and Vodafone, they have demanded that the government, means TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, doubles the interconnection usage charges. Presently they are at 14 paise, they want it to go to up to 30-35 paise. While newcomers like Reliance Jio has strongly suggested that there should be no interconnection usage charges. There should be this bill and keep method, means the operator himself bills his own subscribers for outgoing calls and keeps the revenue receipt. In this interconnection usage charges are charges which are payable by the operator whose subscriber makes a call to the operator whose subscriber receives the call. Means there are of course interconnectivity, means if I am a subscriber, like presently you know that Reliance Jio has given free calling. So if there's free calling, so Reliance Jio customers will call various other operators customers. So if Reliance Jio is calling Airtel or Vodafone or Idea, then this is interconnection usage charges which have to be paid by Reliance because its subscriber has made a call to their subscriber. So this interconnection usage charges, Reliance wants it to be zero, and because these other the players which are there in the field, already settled players like Idea, Airtel and Vodafone, they are claiming that this should be doubled now. So this is what is going on. Actually, TRAI had released a paper calling for scrapping this interconnection usage charges, and all these operators had come up in swords saying that we have invested so much in the infrastructure and development, and now with Reliance Jio coming in, interconnection usage charges going down, and its policy of providing free of cost services initially is affecting their business. Their business has been affected. So this is a concern, and this was the discussion which took place. A workshop which was organized by TRAI had this issue discussed. So you should know about what is interconnection usage charges. Then the next news item is e-commerce. RCEP nations start detailed talks. So first of all, you should know about RCEP. RCEP is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. So this is an FTA being negotiated among 16 Asia Pacific nations. So these 16 nations are actually 10 members of ASEAN. ASEAN is a grouping association of Southeast Asian nations which has 10 members, and 6 other nations which are there are those nations with which ASEAN has an FTA. And these 6 nations are China, Japan, South Korea, and India, Australia and New Zealand. So these are the 6 nations you should know. So this is regarding RCEP. So now RCEP, the objective is, it's an FTA. So its objective is to reduce or eliminate tariffs on most goods, liberalize investment norms, trade in services, boost economic technical cooperation, even strengthening intellectual property rights are some of the provisions which it is working towards. So even dispute settlement aspects will also be covered under it. One new issue which has been emphasized on is e-commerce. So e-commerce is the new trade related issue which countries are emphasizing on to be included in the FTAs being negotiated. And India has been opposing binding norms on opening up e-commerce sector at any level. Even at WTO level, we have opposed this. Even WTO level talks on e-commerce are going on. So this is the stand of India. It says the reason is that we still don't have a comprehensive national policy on e-commerce. So till that time, we don't want to open up our e-commerce sector as such, because of course developed nations have an edge in this. So there are concerns being raised by experts also. They say that developing nations should not liberalize e-commerce until and unless two aspects are taken care of. One, they say that disclosure of source code should be there. This is the code behind the software which is used by e-commerce giants. So these e-commerce companies, because lack of access to this source code then will result in it being tough to prevent anti-competitive practices, hacking, and even violation of rights by these e-commerce nations. So this is one aspect. And another aspect is that there are demands for prohibition of data localization. So data localization, a term means that data which is generated should be stored on servers within the nation. It should be localized. Means if e-commerce, multinational e-commerce come into the country, then the data which they are accruing from nationals within the country, that data should be on servers located within the country. So that is data localization. So this is also a demand which India makes and developing countries should make rather, because this prohibition will also be resulting in difficulties for implementing regulatory controls on e-commerce firms. So these are the two aspects we mentioned here. And this is the RCEP members shown. These are Asian members and 6 other nations. And this is TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, the recent grant FTA which had been negotiated by former US President Barack Obama, and US President Donald Trump has opted out of TPP. So now actually there are 11 nations. So Australia, Japan, New Zealand are part of TPP also, and they are part of RCEP as well. So this is regarding India, which has been reluctant in bringing in e-commerce into the trade negotiations as such. So here these are the points put forth also, that India is studying papers submitted to WTO on e-commerce sector and consulting e-commerce firms about whether foreign e-commerce should be allowed in the country, should the trade be liberalized or not. So that's what we have to evolve our policy for e-commerce first, and then think on whether foreign e-commerce giants can come in the country or not. Can we liberalize or not? And this is regarding data localization. So this data localization means government imposes restrictions that result in localization of data within a certain jurisdiction. So there can be requirement of local storage of data, local storage and processing, or even complete ban on transfer. So this is there. Then the next news item is take my data, give me Wi-Fi. So this is a study which had been undertaken presently, in which it came forth that 96% of Indians have potentially put their personal information at risk by using public Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi in public places like at railway stations or in coffee shops, hotels, etc. While using this public Wi-Fi, if you check public accounts, if you check bank accounts, or if you share personal photos, then there are risks that your data is being snooped into by somebody. So these networks are open networks, they are not private networks. So then they can be easily accessed by cyber criminals because you are using an unsecure Wi-Fi network. So even apps, many apps also, when they call for permissions, you accept all those permissions, then your privacy vulnerabilities also increase. So these are the concerns which were raised, and it is seen that many Indians believe that their personal information was safe when using public Wi-Fi. 74% such Indians in this survey believed so. And 50% of Indians didn't use virtual private networks. So these are public networks, so you can make it into a virtual private network so that your Wi-Fi connection is secured and all your data, personal information is protected. Also 8% it says that who were surveyed, they were unaware of the term virtual private network. So this virtual private network, what is it? You should be aware of. So it's a private network virtually created. So for this, of course, you have to have the software with you. It generally is a paid software which will allow you to generate this private network, and then you can use public Wi-Fi securely. Your information would not be breached. So this is, you can see, a VPN. So this is a private network, a tunnel created so that you access it through this tunnel, which cannot be breached by anybody, the hacker or even the corporate sector or even government. So your data is protected. So this is shown here. Like if you have a public Wi-Fi, you are accessing, everybody is accessing. This is directly accessing and this is at risk. This is unencrypted. But when you use VPN, then your secure tunnel is created, and this secure tunnel, you can see it goes to this tunnel endpoint which has this unsecure connection with whatever website, but then it gives you a secure connection. So it acts as a tunnel through which secure connection can be provided to the user. So this is VPN, virtual private network. So it extends, as it says, a private network across a public network and enables user to send and receive data across the public network as if they are having a private network. It's a virtual private network, as the name suggests. So it creates a secure encrypted connection. It can be thought of as a tunnel between your computer and a server operated by the VPN service. So this VPN generally is a paid service which you have to avail. Then the last news item is world's northernmost coral reefs bleached. So the world's northernmost coral reefs actually lie in Japan, and here it is being seen that they are bleached presently because of high ocean temperatures. So these global phenomena of temperatures, ocean temperatures rising is resulting in these coral reefs being affected. So coral reefs we have discussed quite often earlier, and also coral bleaching. So mild coral bleaching can be overcome by the corals, but if it becomes severe and is there for a long term, then it proves lethal and the corals die. And if the corals die, then reef will also degrade and the structure that the corals have built over a period of time will erode. And coral reefs form a habitat as such for various marine species too. Many are economically or even ecologically important species, and also they protect the shores from storms. So there is an important ecological role which the coral reefs play, and they are presently being seen to be bleached in many regions. And this northernmost coral reef actually lies in the temperate zone. The other coral reefs which we are seeing are all tropical coral reefs as such, and they are also being affected because of above normal temperatures. And the temperate region also we are seeing now being affected. So the latest we had also discussed about the coral reef bleaching in Great Barrier Reef of Australia. So this is the bleaching. So here you can see what is this bleaching. We'll see in detail again. So these are the coral reefs, and this after the bleaching. So then the corals eventually may die. This is Japan. Here there are the coral reefs. You can see the dots shown here in color are the coral reefs across the world, and these are the coral reefs of Japan. So they are the northernmost coral reefs in the temperate zone. Again, they are shown in detail here also, the coral reefs. And these Japanese coral reefs are the northernmost as such. And coral bleaching. So what is this coral bleaching? You should know. So coral bleaching means the corals lose their color. So first of all, you should know what are these corals. So corals have a symbiotic relation with this algae, zooxanthellae, which live in them, in their tissues. So these algae give the color to the corals. And these algae have photosynthesis undertaken, because of which they generate the food, and that is how the corals feed themselves. So if the algae are lost, means when the coral is stressed, then in those cases the algae leave them. And when the algae leaves, the color is gone, and eventually they don't receive the food. The corals don't receive the food, and they lose their color and eventually die. So that is called coral bleaching. So if it is a temporary phenomena, the corals are stressed and the algae have left, and when it recovers, they come back, then it's fine. But otherwise, if it's a permanent long-term phenomena, very severe conditions, then the coral eventually would die. So this is there. Why does coral bleaching takes place? Why do these algae leave? There are various reasons. The 4 prominent reasons you can see here mentioned here. One is change in ocean temperature. So they require an adequate temperature as such at which they survive, the corals and the algae. If the temperature increases drastically or even decreases drastically, then the corals bleaching would take place. Even runoff and pollution results in coral bleaching. Then overexposure to sunlight also is not good for them, and extremely low tides as such also affect the corals and results in coral bleaching. So these are the news items. Thank you.